Welcome back, Novello Nation, to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. I have with us an awesome human who has been exposed to real estate for pretty much his whole life. He's currently the editor of Agent Resources over at Homelight and the host of the Walkthrough podcast, Mr. Matt Mcgee. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me, brother.
Aaron, thank you. It's great to chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. And, I always like to bring people to the platform that I really believe can add value. And I think you definitely fit that criteria because we were chatting prior to getting started. You've actually been exposed to real estate like your entire adult life. I mean,
Yeah.
really your whole life, right?
Yeah. Since the time, my dad, when I was born, I'm not going to give my age away, but way back when, my dad was a real estate agent for almost 50 years. He started in 1953. My sister has her license in Pennsylvania. My wife has been an agent for 17 years. So I've been surrounded by real estate agents my whole life. I remember, Aaron, when I was a little kid, and this will predate probably a lot of listeners, but hopefully some will. I remember my dad bringing home the blue MLS book, right, with all the houses. And I was fascinated, just like paging through that and comparing, this house is $7,000 and this house is $10,000, right? Like, it's just, wow, I have very vivid memories of that from the time I was tiny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not only from kind of an inflation perspective, how the cost of houses have changed,
Right.
but also
Right.
from kind of an evolutionary perspective in terms of the way real estate is done. So I think you not only have that unique perspective because of your exposure. The other thing that I believe causes you to have a unique perspective is that as host of the Walkthrough podcast, which you were kind enough to have me on, you get this opportunity to essentially like mastermind with the top agents in the
Right.
country who are producing at the highest possible levels, the top 1%, 0.01% of agents. And as such, I think you can kind of glean some best practices and things of that nature. So, one of the questions that I wanted to begin with and get this started off with is kind of trends. I'm
Okay.
aware that our game has been rapidly changing for the last at least 3 years, as we have, some sharp elbow competitors that are pushing into the space and just with technology and things of that nature. So as you're interviewing agents, what are some of the major trends that you're seeing?
Yeah. I think right now, obviously, the trends that are affecting everyone right now are just what's been going on in the past year in the industry with the pandemic. And, obviously there was that time of what's going to happen with real estate. And now we have record low inventory, right? The bidding wars. The thing that I am noticing, Aaron, and I wonder if your experience with your clients is the same, but I feel like a lot more of your job these days is maybe coaching clients through like the emotional highs and lows, through some of the struggles of this market. Like it used to be, the struggles would be, are we going to find a house? Do we have our financing in order? Now there's just like, there's so much pressure on this market. Um, just to the speed that the market is moving, dealing with the frustration of bidding wars and all that sort of stuff. I just feel like there's like this mental aspect of working with your clients that is maybe more important now than it's ever been. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I think that there's two, in my experience, kind of um, parts of the process. One is the practical component, which is the dollars and cents, the numbers, kind of mortgage rates, net sheets for sellers, things of that nature. The second is the emotional component. And what I've been sharing with people is that, every market has its own challenges. So when I was selling real estate in '08 and '09 and 10, like nothing was selling. We had
Right.
250 expireds a day, which is a lot. I couldn't even call them all. And you had to get 10 price reductions a month just to move inventory. Lots of foreclosures, lots of short sales. So that had its own set of challenges, right? At the same time, it had some bright spots, which is that for somebody who knows how to sell, that becomes a very productive environment because there's
Right.
lots of people who need your help. And when times get tough, only the skilled get paid, right? So you can go in and kind of build market share. And this marketplace is the opposite of that coin, which is exceptionally low inventory It is, as you mentioned, kind of bidding wars, things of that nature. You have to deal with greed,
Yeah,
because
for
that's a
sure.
normal
Right.
human thing, right?
Absolutely.
That sellers go through, where they get a full price offer and they're like, "Well, Matt, I think I want to wait and see if we get something better."
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. I could
Um,
get more a month from now or 2 months from now. Right.
yeah. So, and I think that people's motivation has to be greater than their discomfort or their kind of inconvenience. So by that, what I mean is, from a buyer's perspective, like their motivation, whatever it is, some life event, right, that's happening in their life: death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living, retiring, wants to be closer to family, like whatever. There has to be a compelling reason for them to be willing to put up with the inconvenience or the stress that's involved in the
Right.
marketplace. And I think
Right.
culturally, as Americans, like, I don't know, we're just used to everything being kind of comfort and convenient. And if there's mild inconvenience, it's like, this is like
R-
ridiculous, right?
Right.
So you just have to
Yeah.
coach people through that process.
Yeah, and what I totally agree with what you just said, is especially where you said the skilled are the ones that are getting paid. I think that's especially the case right now because excuse me, because there's so many scary headlines right now, right? I went on Google News, I don't know, probably a month or so ago, and just typed in real estate because I just wanted to see what the headlines were around the country, and like local newspapers, local TV, right? Like, market is on fire, toughest market ever to buy a house, 70 bidding, 70 offers on individual house. And I fear that there is this thing going on where people that might be buyers or sellers are like, I just don't even want to get involved in this kind of thing. And so when you are working with your clients, it's more important than ever, I think, for you to be the expert, the knowledge broker here, right? To know the market, know the town, and be able to sort of provide all the education and information that you would normally provide, all the skills that you have in order to navigate the process, but then also that added skill in the communication skills, being able to deal with, as you said, the stress. And so I think like if I were a buyer or seller right now, I'd be nervous to like just go online and search for a realtor and pick the first one I find. I'm going to be looking for the ones that have been around 10, 15, 20 years that I know have a track record, that are skilled and really have their stuff together. I think there's a real premium on that in this market.
Yeah. So what comes up for me is, as you say that, is as information becomes free, specialized knowledge becomes more valuable. So we're flooded with information, right? And consumers now have lots of information at their fingertips. But the question is how do you interpret that data?
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing I hear you saying is moving from just being transactionary, like I'll help you buy and sell, we'll fill out paperwork, to being fiduciary, which is where I'm
Right.
actually guiding you. Right. And in
Yeah,
order to do that, not
exactly.
only do I have to have the intellectual intelligence of like understanding the market, but also the emotional intelligence to help them to guide that process. But then I would also propose like being able to have conversations with regards to finance, right? Because that's what we're doing is advising. So that makes total sense to me. And I guess my question is, how are you seeing that agents are integrating technology? Because, I know that the game is changing, and you mentioned people going online and making decisions. And I know probably about 60% of our business now is where people find me, and the importance of like those digital assets and all the reviews and stuff, and utilizing BombBomb and videos. So how are you seeing that agents are coping, or really not coping, but like evolving and utilizing technology to deal with the changes in the marketplace?
Yeah, I do think I don't think that is going to change at all anytime soon. With the going online to research real estate agents. Excuse me. When I think of real estate technology, like I think over the years there's been this focus on sort of, I don't even know what the term is, but I'll call it internal technology. Um, CRMs, your social media management platform. What are you doing to post to Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. What interests me right now, and what I want to see more of technology wise, is tools that actually improve the client experience and give them more, as you were saying, more of the knowledge to to be a smarter client for you. So like, from talking to agents just over the last, 4 or 5, 6 months, I've heard a lot of interest in things like listing management tools. So something that will let you show your seller, you're getting 10, 20 offers on a listing, right? Some kind of tool that lets you show that seller all those offers side by side in sort of an easy to compare, elegant way, as opposed to just like, here's a spreadsheet, it's really homespun, or here's a bunch of printouts of PDFs. I think that kind of technology is really good for the client. And so I want to see more of that. I think also just in the last couple months, I've had a number of agents talk to me just like raving about a tool that I was vaguely familiar with called Homebot. And I've never used it, but it sends out like a monthly financial snapshot to your clients, right? I think it has an estimate on your home's value, some other financial info, like what happens if you were to refinance right now based on current mortgage rates. It's just like this newsletter with all kinds of home and finance information. I've had, like I said, a couple agents just really raving about that and how it helps them get that information into their client's hand, and again, make them a smarter buyer or seller. So that's a tech trend that I like seeing, is using the technology that we have available to us to improve the customer and the client experience. And I hope we see a lot more of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's very insightful, right? As far as like technology, not only as a mechanism to make yourself more productive, which has to do with you, but technology as a mechanism to improve and really the delivery of the service, right? So,
Right.
what I heard you say there, which is interesting, is tech doing serving in different kind of drivers in the business. So, let's say an attraction, right? Attracting clients, whether that's from within your database or outside of your database. In your database would be, in your database, 36 touch program. Homebot would be part of that, where they're getting
Right.
that consistently on a regular basis. And that's
Right.
a piece of software that allows you to serve at a higher level, right? And also gets them to view you as the source of information instead of all these other platforms, right? Then you mentioned using software as a way to deliver as far as the service that I'm delivering, right? Like that listing management, right? So instead
Right.
of just like a Excel spreadsheet or I call you, there's some cool tool that you can use where you can see what's happening in real time. And I do believe that technology is definitely changing people's expectations. So talk to me a little bit about, that and how you feel, because you've watched real estate go from, you mentioned your dad with like a book, right? So like now expectations and how tech is changing people's expectations.
Yeah, I think I had a guest on the walkthrough. This was within the last 3 or 4 months, and I feel bad that I can't remember exactly who said this, but it's like Amazon has kind of trained us to expect things instantly, right? I remember probably, I don't know, a month ago, I placed an order on Amazon for some, little $15 home item. I don't even remember what it was, Aaron. It was like so trivial and unimportant. It was like Saturday night at 11 o'clock. I placed this order on Amazon, and the darn thing showed up at my door Monday morning at 10 a.m., right? Like 36 hours later. Instant gratification. And I think that is sort of what we are starting to become conditioned to, expecting to get what we want when we want it and at great rapid pace. And so I think that does sort of change the dynamic a bit in real estate, that you need to be able to be available, answer the questions, show your value on a moment's notice. And not that I'd ever suggest that you work round the clock, but your clients are going to be operating round the clock,
Well,
right?
what's
And so
interesting, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like what you just said there is like so, because you caught your, you were like noticing. You're like, well, I wouldn't suggest you work around the clock, but what I wrote down as you were saying that is friction. Because what's
yeah,
happening, it's kind of happening where like because people's expectations are, it's got to be like right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. And if we're not careful, the way that our game is set up, like we are the system. And that
right,
means I got to be available whenever that lead comes in. And I got to
right.
call it within 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And friction, that's such a great word, right? Friction, because whether you're in real estate or shopping for trivial products on a Saturday night, we are all conditioned to avoid friction. Like if I am ready to make an appointment with a real estate agent and I call and you're not there, there's another one right below you listed right there on Google, and they're just going to call the next one, right? Unless you've built that relationship with them already, which I think it is another trend that we could talk about. I think what's happened in the last couple of years is made it more important than ever that you continue to show how important you are to your clients and continue to reach out to your database and nail your follow up, your outreach, staying top of mind. I think that's more important than ever now.
Yeah. And when you said that about like, if unless they're a past client, like that might buy you like 24 to 36 hours. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to buy you a whole bunch of time. It might buy you a little time.
Right.
Yeah. And that's interesting because there is that friction. And the reason why I think software is eating the world or technology is like pushing in all these spaces is because part of the reason it's difficult to compete with is because it's frictionless.
Yeah.
Its whole goal is to eliminate friction, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
so that's pretty interesting. And then you mentioned like as far as like another trend that you're seeing because in a way, you know, these third party vendors are kind of impartial, right? Like they want to connect top producing agents with consumers, but they also give the lead out to 4 people or 3 people or whatever it is,
Right.
right? So now then it comes down to conversion,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes down to like skill, right? And also tech. It's a mixture of both. That's what I've learned
Right.
anyway. So
Right.
I guess I'm wondering, like, prior to talking to relationships, what are you seeing as you talk to agents about how they're using tech to help them to convert when somebody raises their hand?
Yeah. I've done I've had a number of conversations about this. I think the thing that has really just stood out to me in the last, I don't know, couple months or so is when you are scaling your real estate business. It's not just tech too, Aaron. I think it's the human element too. I was doing an interview a month or so ago with agents in Southern California. 36 agents on the team. They have, I think, 6 ISAs. And we were talking about a lead comes in. What does that look like? And we were talking about the tech angle too. But what stood out to me and kind of blew my mind was I said, you get a new lead coming from Homelight or Zillow or wherever it might be. What's your goal for speed to lead? And they said, oh, we're going to call them back within 5 seconds. And I was like, I think literally like you could hear me under my breath go, oh my God. Right? Like 5 seconds. To me, that's insane. So my question is, and I haven't figured the answer out this, maybe you know the answer, but my question is, so how does an agent without round the clock, or I think it's like, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. ISA coverage and all the tech tools right there to fire off the text message, to fire off the email. How does an agent or a team that doesn't have that tech and that staffing compete against a team that's going to reply within 5 seconds, right? That
Yeah,
I think
I
that to
think.
me is a huge question.
Well, I think the truth is that they can't.
Right. Yeah, and in
Like,
fact
and I think what's
the
happening is because it's changing the way that it is. That I read a really awesome book called Machines, Platforms, and Crowds. And
okay.
it was talking about how all 3 of those things are converging simultaneously at the same time to rapidly change commerce. Machines meaning artificial intelligence and software, crowds or platforms being like Homelight is a platform, or Zillow's a platform, or Facebook's is a platform, or Uber's a platform, like platforms. And then crowds, how you can crowdsource money, you can crowdsource ideas, right? And what it was talking about is that the people that are going to really thrive in this new environment will have 3 characteristics. One is they can interact creatively with technology.
Okay. I like
What we're
that.
doing is kind of part of that: social media, shooting videos, like somebody who can code, like they can interact creatively with technology. 2 is they are the perceived rock star in their industry,
Hmm.
because now what's happening is more is drifting to the top. People are
Yes.
going online, and whether it's even Homelight's platform, it's figuring out who's the best at converting leads, and it
Y-
pushes more opportunities to them. The third
Absolutely.
is people who have access to capital, because now there'll be opportunities. Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion and they only had like 14 employees. Like, that's crazy.
Right.
Used to be 50 years ago, if you had $1 billion valuation, you had like 25,000 employees, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think the truth is that they can't. And I remember hearing Gary Keller say something, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago at a mastermind meeting. He was like, look, you can lose so slowly, it feels like you're winning.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And
That's
I
good.
think what's happening is there's this seismic shift. And even for somebody, even like, I've done a couple thousand transactions in my career. And, I know the sales component, it requires me to learn this whole other thing, which is like
Yeah.
CRMs
Mm-hmm.
and automatic action plans, with automatic text messages and bomb videos.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a
Mm-hmm.
whole different process.
Right.
It's a bolt on. In my opinion, I'd be curious to see what you think. For those who either aren't in the position to be that perceived rock star, or who don't, who kind of push away or shy away from that tech, like the truth is that they're not going to be able to compete.
Right. And in fact, in that episode that I was mentioning, the guest specifically said, if you can't compete with us replying within 5 seconds, you should not be buying online leads. You're wasting your money, because they're going to, the client is going to get a call right away. And if you call 3 minutes later and we're on the phone, I'm already talking to them and they say, oh, I have another call coming in. Well, I'm just going to say, oh, don't worry about it. That's just another realtor. We got you taken care of. Don't worry. And just keep going. And I think that's, I think that's a really, I think that's right. I think if you can't, like, online leads and the tech that enables online leads really requires instant, rapid, good communication and follow up right away. And if what you've heard the numbers, Aaron, if you respond within 5 minutes, you've got like an 80% chance of getting the client. But if you wait more than 10 minutes, forget it, right? Like, it's done. They're gone elsewhere.
Yeah. And then I think the only way that you can because it is speed to lead, and then it comes down to skill. So like today I was making a call and it was one of these online leads, and he's like, oh, it was actually one of your guys' leads, Homelight.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, I already talked to somebody. She's coming out today. I said, I appreciate that. I know that, the platform gives you multiple choices, so that way you can make the decision you feel is best. Because really, this conversation is not about me. It's not about the other agents. It's really about you and your family. And you guys, wanting to get out to Texas and make this move smooth and efficient. So in my experience, from a professional standpoint, it usually makes sense to get more than one opinion, just to make sure you're making the best choice.
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So then, I'll go in there, but then there's a system as far as pre-qual, as far as like videos, as far as like everything, the pre-listing, that whole process, what we did in our interview.
Yeah. I love your system.
That helps with converting that lead.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like you see all of those things converging at the same time.
And what you did, the guy's trying to brush you off, saying, I've already, somebody's already coming out, but so he's kind of closing the door there, but you're like, oh, no, sticking your hand, sticking your foot in. No, you're not closing this door on me. So that's right. You have to be prepared for that moment and know what to say, right? It's, we're talking a lot about the tech, but at the same time, it boils down to you and your knowledge and your skills and knowing what to say in different situations. And that's what you did there.
And no matter how we kind of slice it up, I think ultimately this is still a sales business, and you're still going to have to talk to people, like, no matter what. So it's like that it's like,
oh my gosh,
the two things that are the most valuable, right, in this environment is the ability or the skill of selling, asking questions to help you get, to help somebody get to a specific destination, and being able to handle objections and close and that sort of thing. And then knowledge of the tech. Yeah. And what I'm aware of is usually these are two separate skill sets. They don't exist in the same human. It's very rare that like a supersonic top producing salesperson who's, very production oriented, very technician, they're doing technical work, right? Like prospecting, lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals, that they have the capacity or the time or the energy or the resources to figure the tech out.
Right. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that about, let's not forget that this is a sales business. I can't tell you how many times I have, been chatting with real estate agents, and or you see them on, on Facebook groups or whatever, and they start complaining about, oh, I had to follow up with this person, 4 or 5 times before they even picked up the phone. I'm like, that's sales. That's what it is. You bought into this, right? I mean, you've got to, if you're not willing to accept that that is just like foundational level, then you're probably in the wrong business, right? Like that's what you got to do. You got to pick up the phone, you got to talk to people, and you got to keep trying.
Yeah, over and over again. And you got to push past, tremendous amounts of no's. I remember being in front of a group. I was doing a talk to an office, and I was like, guys, I just want you to just understand something conceptually. So I spoke to 7,532 people in the last 12 months. I got 142 to say yes.
Wow.
And when people want to be like, oh, like I had to call, it's like, well, that's so interesting. Do you think the guy or the gal who like cuts grass, do you think like every day they're like, oh man, I gotta go like cut grass? You know what I did today, Matt? I cut grass today. Like, okay, dude, that's your job, bro. Like, why
Right.
is this even a thing? It shouldn't even be a conversation.
Yeah. And in real estate, you have to be able to accept no and just move on to the next one if that's what happens, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So I think we set the kind of a very good picture for those that are listening with regards to the 2 skills that are becoming increasingly more valuable. And I guess my question to you is as it pertains to kind of systems, right? Because my experience was when we started getting a lot of these online leads, which we got a lot because our track record's really strong and the algorithm's like, okay, you do a lot of deals, right? It got overwhelming, honestly. And the truth is if I'm just trying to call them, it's not enough. Like it just isn't. And I'm not going to get to them really quickly. And what I realized is this idea of multiple lines in the water. So like having automations where like, let's say I call one of your guys' leads, they don't pick up, I leave a message, but then automatically it gets dropped into a CRM. They get a text message and a bomb video, like boom, boom, like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And layering those things and realizing like, hey, I might need to try to touch these people like 18 times, 21 times in the first 72 hours just to get them on the phone.
Yep. So
I guess my question is based on your acknowledgement, you're like, yes, that's exactly what we're seeing is happening.
That's what you got to be doing. That's exactly right.
You have to, because without it, again, you won't be able to compete.
Right.
So I guess on top of, in conjunction with that, like, are you seeing that agents are doing anything else other than that? Like having a CRM, having people that pick up very quickly, whether it's them or they hire somebody else to do it, they have the resources to do it. Or they have these CRMs that are automatically sending out, emails and text messages and things of that nature. Is there anything else that you're seeing agents are doing to help them to convert?
Yeah, I think, to help them to convert, I think that is, to me, it comes down to, again, it's the combination of the tech and the person, right? So you talk about sending out that instant text message and sending out the bomb video, but then what are you doing to get face-to-face like you and I are right now? That to me, because I think, what I see, sometimes is more of a focus or not enough of a focus on, all right, the first goal here is to get that appointment set. Let's take it step by step. Let's not worry about, how far they are, let's focus on getting the appointment set. And if we can get face-to-face, once I know I have that face-to-face, then I can start in on the know, like, and trust angle of making that connection and establishing that I'm the expert, that I'm the one that can help you navigate through, especially through this, crazy market we're in. I don't know. I don't think, Aaron, that there's necessarily anything new under the sun at this point. I mean, I feel like we know what to do. I feel like it's a matter of the discipline to actually put these systems in place, know the scripts, practice your role play, do all that sort of, so that you can anticipate whatever the situation is that comes up in the course of following up and trying to convert this lead. I think a lot of it, I don't know. If listeners are, expecting, some shiny, I don't think that exists. I think it's really a matter of the discipline. You know what to do, go out and do it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's a completely true in my experience, which is that, these sources, wherever they're coming from, they're just kind of getting in the way, essentially. So, like, in other words, there's potential clients, there's agents, and then there's the internet. And there's different business models that are being created around that. One of them is, okay, we're going to connect you with, agents, and we'll take a referral fee. That's cool. Nothing wrong with that. It's fine. To me, it's like I'm outsourcing pay per click, essentially.
Right. Mhm.
So, but now that once that flow starts to come, if I'm hallucinating and imagining that I can just call these people and that's enough, like it's not a realistic expectation,
Right.
right? It's not
Right.
something that is going to be sustainable over time. I need a system when they come in that they're getting hit in other ways. And then to your point, I find it so interesting that on your guys' leads, like you actually have to put a message like, remember that the purpose of this call is to set an appointment. Like, God dang, bro. Like, really, you got to fucking tell people that? Like, that's insane to me, right?
Oh my gosh.
Where that
That's
has to
good.
be like a reminder. And I know it's not there because, it's not a filler. They wouldn't do it if they were
Right.
noticing that they were listening to the calls and people are like, la, la,
Right.
la, and they're not setting appointments, right?
That's fantastic. No, no, I didn't. That's fun. I didn't even know that that's part of the process of getting a Homelight lead. There's a little message that says that. I had no idea.
Yep. When you
But
call in, it's like, and remember the purpose of your first phone call is to set an
oh,
appointment. And I'm like, wow, dude.
that's fantastic. But it's true, right? It's like it's so easy to just get lost and I don't know, to take the easy way out isn't the right phrase, but I'll just to maybe to kind of sum up what I'm trying to say. When 2017, I started working as my wife's marketing guy. She'd been in the business at that point for 13 years, successful, right? On her own, solo agent, 30, 40 transactions a year or whatever it is. Um, but everything was up in her brain, right, Aaron? Like she didn't have any systems on paper, no process. So like one of my first things was, all right, I've got to create a follow-up, a drip campaign. How is she going to handle it when a new lead comes in? So I have to do all the research. So like, I think the first version that I put in place, and try not to laugh too hard, but it was like, okay, new lead comes in, you're going to call or send a text. And then 3 days later, you're going to follow up and see what happened, right? Like, I just laugh at that at this point, like to think that they could possibly wait 3 days to hear from you again, like, and they're just
Well,
going to sit there and
and
not
yeah,
doing
and they're
anything,
just going to be like, oh, well, let me just twiddle my thumbs and wait for Matt to call me back. Like,
right? Come on.
yeah. And what I think is interesting is I think that's that's very true. It's an awesome story. I'm so glad you told it because I see people do the same thing in lead follow up.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, like I'll call you back. Like what I tell people is, look, whatever you tell me, I'm going to cut it in half. You tell me to call you back in a week, I'm calling you in 3 days. You tell me to call you in 3 days, I'm going to call you in a day, right? And
Yes.
recognizing that everybody has the same leads.
Yes, and for listeners who maybe don't appreciate what Aaron just said, what he just said about cutting in half, I hear that from all of the really successful real estate agents. That is, oh, I'll be ready in 6 months. Nope, you're calling them in 2 or 3 months. That
Yeah.
is like that's how you do it.
Yeah, because I mean, if I had 1,000 agents in the room, like, okay, how many of you guys thought you had something in the bag? They told you to call them back. You called them back when they told you to call them back, and they'd already listed the property.
Yeah,
Like,
all
and
the
it's
time.
all the time, right? So, you know, recognizing that, to your point, that it's just again understanding the tech, realizing that technology is changing our expectations. People are expecting to be able to speak to somebody. It doesn't have to be you, but somebody all the time.
Mhm.
I noticed in the story you talked about like her sending a text. Now there's technology that can do that instantaneously.
Right. Yep.
So I'm not involved in it,
Yep.
right? There's also virtual assistants that I could hire that can pick up the phone whenever those leads come in. I can give them a script and they can, have a conversation if need be. And yeah, and then it comes down to skill, like being on a phone call and recognizing that the purpose of us speaking is to set an appointment.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I'm speaking to one of your guys' leads, I ask a few questions. It's like, all right, well, can I make a suggestion? And whenever I say, can I make a suggestion? That's permission to close. They're like, yeah, what's up? Well, based on what you've been kind enough to share with me, I'm hearing a couple things. Number one is you definitely want to make this move happen. Number two, the more information that you can gather right now, the better equipped you'll be. So you can make that executive decision as far as what to do. So what I'd like to do is this. I'm in your area all the time. Love to have the opportunity to pop by. So we're going into a closing sequence. Like we're going to set an appointment.
Yeah.
And then from there, pre-qualifying the appointment, right? Because I think that a lot of times, at least in my experience, people getting these leads and they're just running out and talking to people and have no idea like what's going on. And I'm just going to figure out what's going on. I remember when we did our interview, you were like, wait a minute. You do this before you even see that? I'm like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think, that was, and these episodes are replaying like right now as we're doing our conversation. And so I've listened back to it, and I just like that, the way you sort of flip that on its, you do a lot of you call it pre-qualifying, like asking all of those questions in advance, or as many of those questions as you can get in to sort of figure out. I like what you said that stands with me is you said you're trying to find out if where they are on a scale of 1 to 10 of being ready to do business with you. And you only want to talk to eight, nines, and 10s, right? If they're a 6 or a 7, forget it. Let some other agent chase that down, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because while they're mulling through, and what I tell people all the time is that the good lead, the okay or bad leads, they hide the good ones.
Right.
And by me making that commitment, but people sometimes they operate from a position of fear. So they're like, oh, I want to hoard all these leads. And like, oh, well, maybe if I find them a unicorn and everything works out right, then maybe they'll do something. But while you're messing with those people, I can list 10, 12, 15 homes a month because I'm only dealing with 8, 9s, and 10s. So then here's my question to you is if you were an agent, if you were going to go into the real estate business as a technician and actually sell real estate, with all of this information, you watching the game evolve between your dad and your sister and your wife, working on your wife's team, doing this podcast, the work you've done with Homelight, watching as the game's kind of changing, what would be like 3 things that you think you would just focus on and dial in on?
If I were to become a real estate agent, that's a scary thought first. I mean, you guys are so good at what you do. I would never claim to like have that same skill set. So I think probably the first thing I would do is figure out what sets me apart from all the other agents in my market and sort of make that the focus of my marketing. Because again, as an external observer, a non-agent who watches, talks to a lot of agents, I see so much sameness in real estate, right? They're like real estate. We just did an episode on real estate websites a couple of, like you look at 50 real estate websites and they just, so many of them look exactly the same. You can't tell one agent from the next. Scroll through your Facebook feed and so many agents are posting the same stuff and saying the same things. And so I'm like I would want to be different. I would want to figure out what I can do differently to stand out and separate myself from the crowd. So that would probably be number 1, and let that guide my marketing. Number 2, what we just talked about, like with systems and processes. I mean, on the disc profile, I'm like a heavy S and C. So I'm like all about systems and processes. I think you have to have repeatable and scalable systems these days, because I mean, real estate is you're in a people business and people are completely unpredictable. So try to make things predictable wherever you can, and the technology and the systems and the processes can allow you to be predictable in your lead gen and your lead conversion and all that sort of stuff. So I would really focus on that. And then maybe number 3, I would get a coach, because I think it's, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. I think it's real easy in this industry to not hold yourself accountable to, oh, I'll fix that tomorrow. I'll do, today, I don't want to do my follow-up today. I'm not going to call my sphere, whatever. I think it's real easy to just say, oh, I'll pick that up next time. But if you can have somebody that can, ask you the right questions, hold you accountable, and help you sort of navigate. If that's what I would want, I think I would, and I say that because my wife went the first 10 or 12 years of her career without a coach, was very skeptical of coaching, got a coach, and then her business just took off. And I hear that from like everybody, right? Like everybody's like, oh, I thought coaching was a joke. And then I got one and my business really took off. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I appreciate that. I just took notes on all of that. I think everybody, if you're, taking notes, there was some good guidance there. What comes up for me when I heard you say that is like, it's no different than the apprenticeship back in the day.
Yeah.
What's interesting is an apprenticeship back when you had to sign a contract for 7 years of your life.
Oh, wow.
So you would study under a master, whatever it was, like a craft, like, ceramics or painting or like, husbandry or whatever it was. And you would have to sign a contract for 7 years.
Oh my
And you would
gosh.
study under the master. And you'd start off, let's say it was painting. You'd start off making paintbrushes.
Yeah, get right down to the bottom, just get.
Yep. Then mixing paint.
Yeah.
You might do that for a year. Just
Yeah.
mixing paint, mixing colors. Then you might actually get the chance to like paint the bushes in the scene.
There's glamour.
And then the master would come in and they would, do the main piece. And then over time, the whole, it would culminate in you having to do a master work from start to finish. So you'd have to make the canvas. You'd have to, make the brushes, make the paint. You'd have to make the painting. Then you'd have to present it to the master, and the master would have to be like, okay, now you can go out in the world and do this for other people. But 7 years, and I find that so interesting, right? Because was very true for me, is that, it takes, I don't know, it just takes a lot of time. We've heard that 10,000 hours thing. It just takes a lot of time and energy and effort. And a teacher, a coach, or a mentor, they can condense decades worth of learning into days, weeks, months, things of that nature. And then the other thing you mentioned about systems, what I'm aware of is that you can only grow to the proportion that your systems will allow you to. So even with a platform like you guys, like you might get a whole bunch of leads, but if I don't have transaction coordination, listing coordination, if I don't have things in place, I might get 100 leads a month, but I might only convert 2 instead of being able to convert 8 or 9, right? Because I'm not bogged down in the weeds with all the paperwork and stuff. So this has been great, man. Look, I really appreciate you taking the time. So if anybody wants to connect with you, if they want to check out like the walkthrough podcast, where could they find you?
If they go to homelight.com/podcast, that will get them to all the information about the walkthrough, and my contact information is in there. They can find me on Twitter. It's at Matt Mcgee. I tweet sometimes about real estate. So yeah, this was a wonderful conversation. I love connecting with you. It's always fun to chat with you. I know you bring so much value and have so much experience and knowledge. And I love that you're willing to share it because it makes the industry better. And I love talking to agents that are willing to open up and share what they know with others. So keep up what you're doing, dude.
Appreciate it, man. My pleasure. And if you like this episode, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe, share it with anybody. And if I can help you or be of assistance in any way, just let me know. So appreciate you, Matt. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it, man.